Members from the DA are voting at the Democratic Alliance Federal Campaign Office in Bruma today, the vote for an interim party leader and federal chairperson. After a few dramatic weeks, today's election is expected to bring much-needed stability. It's the second time the party's federal council will be called upon to vote outside of Congress. But the party says there are some positives to this. The party will replace Mmusi Maimane. Maimane resigned from the party and from Parliament in October. The results are expected to be announced this afternoon. Well, joining us now is our reporter Hitekani Makwedze, who is at the DA's Federal Campaign Office in Bruma. A very good afternoon to you, Hitekani. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, you've been there since earlier on this morning. Maybe if you can begin by taking us through exactly what's taken place so far and whether or not that vote has already taken place.
The voting, Lindy, I'm not sure if you can hear me. The voting has begun already. Actually, they just finished a couple of minutes ago. The last candidate, the last delegates just finished voting, and this is where the announcement will be made in a couple of minutes' time. We know announcement with the new interim leader of the DA and the federal council leader chairperson will be announced at 2 o'clock. Now, we know that the two candidates are fighting or vying for that top spot in the interim of political leader are John Steenhuisen and Makashule Ghana. In fact, Makashule Ghana just tweeted his speech. They were supposed to give like a 3-minute speech campaigning and trying to get the members to vote for them. And in his speech, he was talking about how it was a very important time right now to ensure that the DA convinces South Africans that it does care about equality and making sure that the things like redress are done and making sure that people know that the DA is about making sure that the disadvantaged become advantaged. So reiterating his stance, it seems like in terms of his take on redress and the approach that's supposed to be taken. But we know that both candidates were quite confident going into this interim leadership race from this morning onwards, Lindy.
And I mean, Hitekani, we do understand that initially there were 3 candidates. That's now gone down to 2 candidates. A lot of people reporting that John Steenhuisen is, the favorites going into this vote. You had an interview, I think, with Makashule Ghana, who's also vying for that top position. And in that interview, he speaks about how, he's just a young man from the ghetto and he's not willing to change who he is. Tell us a bit about these 2 candidates and who really stands a chance to lead the official opposition.
Well, look, from the type of analysis that we've been getting and we've been doing throughout the time that the campaigning and the nominations have been happening, it's always been John Steenhuisen's name coming up above all 3 when it was 3 candidates vying for that spot. And that's obviously because he's occupied that parliamentary seat for quite a while. He's been seen as a potential leader in some levels and in some areas and some preferences among members of the DA. So in this list, he stands out as one who is probably the one who's going to come out as leader when the votes are announced by 2 o'clock this afternoon. But the similarity between these two is striking in terms of how many years that they've been in the DA and rising within the ranks. We know that Makashule Ghana started started about 17 years ago in the DA. He started just as a member. In fact, the presiding officer of the voting today, Desiree van der Walt, was the one who converted Makashule Ghana to become a member of the DA in Tzaneen a odd 17 years ago, and he's been rising in the ranks since he joined the DA. And this, and it's also very important to take note of that he's contended for a number of positions, including the position of federal chairperson, which he lost to Ethel Trollip, and a couple of other positions as well. He's lost those, but he's continued being a very dedicated member of the DA. And that's what he said during the interview that we had with him, that if he does lose in these votes, in these elections for interim leader, he will tomorrow continue being a very participant, an active leader, active leader within the party.
Yeah, and I mean, Hitekani, the issue of race has also been raised when we speak about the DA leadership. We saw last month when Mosemaimane resigned as the party's leader, he spoke about how he doesn't believe that the DA is the party that can advance an equal society. Karen Moore doing an interview with John Steenhuisen. Steenhuisen speaks about how, you know, he doesn't believe that the issue of race will be one to consider when they speak about who is next to lead the DA. But shouldn't that be something that they do consider, you know, especially if they still want to or are still looking into gathering votes from black South Africans?
Well, the issue of race, you could say that all of them agree on one thing, that race is a problem, but a problem in which stance and in which type of approach. You have on the one side Makashule Ghana saying that the issue of redress and ensuring that black people, and being specific, black people and colored people and Indian people who were disadvantaged during the apartheid era should be assisted. There should be a concerted effort for them to know, first of all, that there is a concerted effort to make sure that they become advantaged, that inequality is done away with. But secondly, that they are a priority in making sure that inequality is done away with, by the fact that they are black and they were disadvantaged, they should be cared for. And that's the approach for Makashule Ghana. That's the redress type of approach that Makashule Ghana wants and would probably enforce as policy if he does come into that interim leader position. And it is, of course, the stance that people like the former mayor, the outgoing mayor of Johannesburg, Herman Mashaba, takes, and the ex-leader of the DA, Mosemaimane, took as well. But you have another front, which is the one that John Steenhuisen, as you rightly said, pushes. He says that, you know, race shouldn't be used as a proxy for disadvantage, and that disadvantage alone should be used as proxy because, as he says, disadvantage alone is enough to use as a reason to advantage someone and to create policies to advance someone, not the color of their skin. And this is strikingly the same type of position that an organization like the International Race Relations takes. In fact, we had an interview a couple of days ago with them, and that's absolutely word for word the type of approach that they take, and certainly the type of approach that Helen Zille, who was part of them, takes. So very striking differences, and it's a fight on ideas today.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. We'll leave it there with our reporter Hitekani Makwedze coming to us live from Bruma. We're expecting that announcement in the next hour or so on who will be next to lead the DA.